Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier session of chapter 2, unit 2, related to consumer behavior, we discussed about what is the nature of human wants in general and how the wants can be broadly classified into three categories: necessities or necessaries, comforts and luxuries. And also we started to understand the word utility, which is going to be used as a part of the marginal utility analysis, which has been formulated by Alfred Marshall. So marginal utility analysis is definitely one of the technical things that is important from understanding the consumer behavior, as well as for exam purposes also questions can be expected from this particular topic, mainly from the concept of diminishing marginal utility as well as the theory of consumer surplus. Put together, we can call that as marginal utility analysis. So here, this theory, which was formulated by Alfred Marshall, tries us to explain how generally a consumer spends the income on different goods and services, ultimately with a objective of attaining maximum satisfaction. But of course, before we enter into the discussion of these theories, we should always keep in mind these are theories. They are all based on certain assumptions. Those may or may not be really applicable in the actual real world. So there will be a lot of limitations of every theory, and this theory is also not an exception to that. So it is our job only to understand what the theory says and on what assumptions this theory is based on, as well as what are the limitations of the theory when it comes to real life. So from a theoretical perspective, we need to look at this. Not necessarily that everything that is told and that is going to be discussed as a part of marginal utility analysis actually happens. So that misconception should not be there. Always we need to keep in mind we are trying to learn certain theories proposed by somebody else. We are not trying to create any theories here, and we don't have that capacity also. We should understand that. So Alfred Marshall tells this marginal utility theory or marginal utility analysis. But before entering into that, we need to understand the difference between total utility and marginal utility. And this is not the only place where we are going to use these words, total and marginal. They are going to be used very extensively in future in many of the topics that we are going to discuss in economics. So this concept of total and marginal has to be very clearly understood. Total, as the name indicates, is nothing but the sum total of all the marginal utilities derived from the consumption of different units. In other words, total utility is nothing but the total of marginal utilities. So marginal utility 1, 2, 3, like that, so on till n. If we add up all the marginal utilities, that will be resulting in the total utility that is generated by consumption of any commodity or service. So name of total utility itself is self-explanatory. It is total. And total of what? Total of all marginal. So you can replace this utility with anything else. There can be cost, there can be revenue in the place of this, but still the concept remains the same. So that is why very important aspect here to note is the concept of marginal. Marginal is the word which is going to be used many times in future, and in the place of utility other words may be replaced, but the concept of marginal is still the same. If we understand that concept, then we can apply that concept in different contexts. Now we are applying it to the context of utility. So what is the word marginal? What does it mean? What does the word total mean? We don't need to explain. Total is total. Total of all marginals. But what does marginal mean? That is very important. What does marginal mean? Marginal is simply, we can understand and remember like 1 plus. 1 plus is not the mobile phone we are talking, but anything that is 1 plus is what is marginal. So whatever the additional utility generated by consuming one more commodity, we can call that marginal utility. Let us say we use the same concept in cost. What is the additional cost that will be incurred to manufacture one more commodity? That is marginal cost. Let us say we apply this to revenue. What is the additional revenue which can be generated by selling one more commodity? That is marginal revenue. So in all of them, what is common? One more. So for understanding purposes, we can just codify it as if it is just 1 plus. But if we apply that to the marginal utility, in the context of utility, what is that? Simply speaking, it is the addition made to the total utility by consumption of an additional unit, one only, one additional unit of a commodity. So simply speaking, it is utility derived from one more additional unit consumed or possessed by the individual. So one more, 1 plus is the concept of marginal. So utility generated by consuming one more commodity is marginal utility. Cost incurred to manufacture one more commodity is marginal cost. Revenue generated by selling one more commodity is marginal revenue. Anywhere it is marginal means one more. That has to be understood very clearly. So that's what is summarized here. What is marginal utility? Let us restrict our discussion to utility now. But remembering and understanding the word marginal is very important. So here utility, when we use it as marginal utility, is nothing but the addition made to the total utility by the addition of consumption of one more unit of a commodity. So what is the word marginal indicating here? That is this. That is one more. So one additional unit if you consume, what is the additional unit utility generated by that consumption is called as marginal utility. This can be expressed like this symbolically. Maybe sometimes questions can be there on this also. You should be remembering this. Marginal utility of consuming nth commodity is equal to the total utility of consuming n commodities minus total utility of consuming n minus 1 commodities. That's what is marginal utility of nth commodity. Observe this carefully. When I use the word marginal utility, I am using the word nth commodity. When we are using the word total utility, I am using the word n commodities. So there is a difference there. Total utility of n commodities is different. Total utility generated by nth commodity is different. So nth commodity is only that one commodity, that one additional unit. How much additional utility it is generating, that can be found out by taking the total utility of n commodities and from that deducting the total utility generated by consuming n minus 1 commodities. So that will give us marginal utility in a simple way if we have the total utilities. Of course, how are we going to get these marginal utilities, total utilities? We don't have to break our heads. That will be given in the question. Our job is to identify how much is the marginal utility and how much is the total utility. So if total utilities are given, from that we should be able to find out marginal utility. How? Taking the total utility of n commodities and deducting from that the total utility of n minus 1 commodities. That gives us marginal utility of nth commodity, right? So that is a word here, very important, nth commodity or nth unit. So total utility is the total utility of not nth unit actually. This is wrong. Don't focus on this. This is not correct. It is n units actually. Total utility of n units can be called as TU. Total utility of n minus 1 units can be called as TU n minus 1. Marginal utility of nth unit is what we call MUN. That can be found out by using this formula. Of course, the numbers will be given in the question. We need to just use this formula to substitute those numbers and get our required answer. Then what if marginal utilities are given? Then how to get total utility? Just by adding all of them, we get total utility, marginal utility of consuming one commodity or two commodities or three commodities, like that. For each commodity, how much ever marginal utility is there, that should be all added so that we get total utility. So we should be able to find out marginal utility from total utilities or total utility from marginal utilities, both ways. Questions can be asked from this. That is pure computation of these two things. And the concept of marginal utility is very important. That is the satisfaction derived, utility derived by consuming one more commodity. That additional utility is called as marginal utility. The concept of marginal is always about that one plus one additional unit. Whatever it generates, that is called marginal. Then, coming to some of the assumptions of this marginal utility analysis. Some of the assumptions are given here. Basically, this theory assumes that a consumer is rational and a consumer tries to attain maximum satisfaction. Normally, yes, people are generally rational, and then they try to attain maximum satisfaction from whatever the money they have. That is one of the basic assumptions of this theory, which is reasonably okay. But of course, these are all assumptions we need to understand, not necessarily realities. If it is reality, we don't need to assume that. Assumption itself means they may or may not happen in reality. Are all consumers rational? Definitely not. So is this assumption valid in that case? Definitely not. So should we drop this theory? Definitely not. We should still read the theory in spite of its limitations, in spite of its assumption basis. Still, the theory is what we are going to learn, but we are also going to learn that there are some assumptions on which this theory is based upon. That's it. And another very important assumption here is this utility concept is measurable, is the assumption of this theory. And that is anything that we can measure, that is called as cardinal approach. These words are important to be remembered. Like we had the words earlier, positive, normative, pure, applied, like that. Objective, subjective, relative. These are all words which are important to be normally understood. Particularly while learning economics, these words become important. So, what is a cardinal approach? Simple. Whichever is measurable, that is a cardinal thing. Which is not measurable, that is ordinal thing. In other words, quantitative analysis is cardinal, qualitative analysis is ordinal. So, according to these all neoclassical economists, including Marshall, utility is a cardinal concept, which means what? Utility can be quantifiable. But practically, once again, sir, how can we quantify it? We cannot answer that. We cannot quantify it. We know that. But they assume that it can be quantified. So they assume that it is a cardinal approach and they can give numbers to utilities also. Like that, there's some other kind of measurement they try to use called as utils. Again, what is this utils? How can we measure it? Please don't get into that. We cannot measure it. Rupees we know, meters, liters, kilometers we know. These are all measurements for various things. But utils is the measurement unit for utility. Where is that? How is that? Beyond our discussion. So just understand that first, according to them, according to the neoclassical economists, utility is a measurable item. It is a quantifiable item. That is what makes this theory a cardinal theory. And once the question comes, how are we going to measure it? Answer is yes, we are going to measure it with a measurement unit called as utils. So that is what we have to know. Let us say some person says that I have derived 10 utils by consuming one commodity, and somebody else says 5 utils only is getting 5 utils only is getting by consuming the commodity of B. So by consuming commodity a person is getting 10 utils. By consuming commodity B, he is getting only 5 utils. So what can we conclude from that? Definitely he is deriving more satisfaction, he is deriving more utility from commodity A than commodity B. So here he can compare the utility derived from commodity A to commodity B because these two are quantifiable and they have been expressed as utils. One is having 10 utils, other one is having 5 utils. So that is the point to be noted here. So point is, utility can be measured, it can be quantified. How to quantify that? What is the measurement? Measurement is utils. That has to be one of the assumptions of cardinal measurability of utility. But the point comes once again, this utils is okay, name is okay, but what is that utils? How can that be expressed? What is that to be measured actually? So a practical difficulty will definitely arise out of that. So what the theory comes out of with a solution is, money is the measuring rod of utility, they say. So though we say that utils is one of the measurement units of utility, but how is it expressed as ultimately is money. In other words, money is the expression of utility that a person is ready or prepared for paying for a unit of good. In other words, let us just take this way. If commodity A in our example was having a market price of 10 rupees, commodity B is also having a market price of 10 rupees, definitely the consumer will not buy commodity B. Why? Because the price of the commodity is more than the utility that he is deriving from it. So since he has these numbers in mind, he may not be able to express all this. He cannot tell everybody. But we are trying to understand the consumer behavior with some assumptions. So in a situation like this, will he buy commodity A or commodity B if both are priced same? Definitely he'll buy commodity A because he derives more satisfaction from commodity A than commodity B. So what is the amount that is ready to pay is what he is able to calculate, and that is what is the expression of utility that he might get by consuming that commodity. That's what is a measure of utility, we can say, which the utility is derived from good, how to measure it ultimately, how to express it. Measurement you can say utils also, but utils is not something that can be actually really expressed. If suddenly if a chocolate bar is given to you and asked how many utils of utility you have generated, it is almost impossible to tell. So that is why expressing that is not possible. Though this theory assumes that it can be quantified, it is not practically possible. But what can be definitely quantified is money. So what the theory says is, money is the measuring rod of utility. If you are ready to pay a certain amount of money for a certain product, what is that price indicating? If you are ready to pay, if nobody is ready to pay, that means they are not ready to consume that. That means they may not be able to generate any utility from that. If people are ready to buy a product at a particular price, that is an indirect expression of the people that I am generating this much of utility from this. So for understanding purposes, simply we can say the prices which are prevailing in the market are the real expression for the utility that people generate from that commodity. That itself is an expression. So we can conclude on that. Again, reiterating that money can be the measuring rod of utility. And how do people express that? By buying it. Simple. If they buy it, that means they are ready to pay for a particular commodity, a particular price. And why are they ready to do that? Because they are going to generate a certain amount of utility from that consumption of product, which they match with the price. In their mind itself, they will match with the price. What is the utility generated? What is the price? Should I buy it? Because he is a rational consumer, they will try to maximize their satisfaction. So if their analysis satisfies the condition that the utility generated at least should be equal to the money that is spent, then only they will consume that commodity. Imagine if a utility, what they feel is less than the price that they have to pay. That's what we popularly call them overpriced. They don't buy that because they think the commodity is overpriced. The price of the commodity is high, but utility generated is actually low. Then such type of commodities nobody will buy. Rational consumers will not buy that. If, for example, utility actually whatever they expect is less and price is more, then they will not buy it. If utility is more and price is less, then they will buy it. If both are equal also, they will buy it. In general, they have to be equal. That is the point of measurability of utility, measured as utils, expressed as money. That is the measuring rod of utility. That is one of the assumptions of this particular marginal utility theory or marginal utility analysis. And there is another assumption that says the money doesn't have any change in the marginal utility. So marginal utility itself means what? The additional satisfaction derived by having one more unit. So this theory assumes the money will not have any diminishing marginal utility. It will have constant marginal utility. For understanding purposes, if a person has 10 rupees with him, whatever that 10 rupees note gives him the satisfaction, if he gets one more 10 rupees note, the second note is not going to give him any less satisfaction. Psychologically, he will be having same satisfaction from both of them. That you can apply to any number. First 1 lakh rupees when you earn in life, whatever the happiness that you get, satisfaction you get. In the second 1 lakh also you will get the same satisfaction, is the assumption once again. How is it possible, sir? Really, we may not get that much satisfaction. First one will get more satisfaction. All these things we know that. But that is not what we have to focus on. We have to focus on what the theory says. Theory says marginal utility of money is constant dot. That's it. Marginal utility of money is constant. So any more number of monetary units, if you are going to have, that is not going to reduce the marginal utility. It is going to remain same. This is an important assumption because you cannot have two things moving. Understand this? Because on one hand, we are expressing utility with the help of money. And we are telling that the marginal utility of normal commodities and services will be diminishing. That is why we call this theory as a theory of diminishing marginal utility. And we are expressing that in the form of money. If money also has diminishing marginal utility, then that will be a problem. Two variables cannot run at the same time. At least one has to be fixed. That is the point here. So what is fixed here? Marginal utility of money is fixed. There is no change, or there is not going to be any change in the marginal utility of money. If it changes, then the measuring rod of utility becomes unstable. To avoid that, this theory assumes constancy of marginal utility of money. Important assumption, again from a theoretical perspective. So consumers are rational, utility can be measured, and money has always constant marginal utility. These are the assumptions of this theory, and also the hypothesis of independent utility. So basically the theory ignores the complementarity between the goods. It will assume that this theory ignores the complementarity between the goods. It thinks whatever the total utility which a person gets from the total collection of the goods purchased by him is just simply the sum total of separate utilities of the goods. So independent utility of each commodity is measured here. Certain times utility cannot be independent certain times. There may be a joint utility, but this theory ignores that. This theory ignores the complementarity between the goods. If at all, for example, we say there are two types of goods which are related, say printer and cartridge. This theory thinks that the utility printer gives is separate, the utility cartridge gives is separate. We don't mix that. So we cannot say those are complementary commodities. So these are all independent utilities only the theory will focus upon. Once again, how is it possible? Not possible. Everybody knows that. Marshall also knows that, by the way. Marshall is not some stupid to tell all this. In order to come to a hypothesis, in order to derive a theory, there will be requirement of certain assumptions. This is their life's work. Entire life they have worked on economics only, and they have come out with a lot of theories which tell us a bit about consumer behavior. That is what we are trying to do. So just because these assumptions are there, we cannot demean the theory or reduce it to nullity. That is wrong. Yes, these are all not necessarily practical things. That is why we are calling them assumptions. If they are going to happen really, we don't need to assume that. We don't need to assume that a day has 24 hours. That is a fact. That is an accepted thing throughout the world. So, facts need not be assumed. Realities need not be assumed. Assumption itself indicates already automatically that practically there may be difficulty in actually having these assumptions. But sometimes they may be there also. We are not bothered about that. We are only bothered about what are the assumptions of marginal utility analysis. How they really work in the real world is beyond our scope, we can say. So these are the assumptions. One is rationality of the consumers. Two is measurability of the utility, quantifiability of that, which we call cardinal approach. And the measuring rod of utility is money. And marginal utility of money is going to be constant. That is not going to change. That should be same. Because if that also changes, then it becomes difficult to measure the utility. That's why we have a stable measuring rod, that is money, which will have constant marginal utility. And this theory ignores the complementarity between the goods. Each good here, each consumption of a particular commodity here is treated to be, assumed to be independent. Independent utility only is going to be checked here, but not a joint utility, but not a combined utility of a combination of goods. No, that is not the scope of this theory. This theory only talks about one particular commodity's independent utility, and the sum total of all the marginal utilities of that particular commodity becomes the total utility of that commodity. So that is another assumption of the theory, or we can say the overall hypothesis of the marginal utility analysis. In that particularly, what is the theory suggesting? The name itself indicates, which we have touched earlier while understanding the law of demand. That is the law of diminishing marginal utility. That is one of them in the marginal utility analysis, the law of diminishing marginal utility. Name itself indicates now. Once you understand marginal utility, you can understand the law in a simple way. Diminishing means reducing. So what is happening, what this law is going to tell? The marginal utility that is generated by consuming one more commodity, it will be less than the marginal utility of consuming the earlier commodity. So whenever the consumer increases the consumption of more and more units of goods, his marginal utility will be decreasing. As the consumption is increasing, then marginal utility is decreasing. That's what is the theory of diminishing marginal utility tells us. Of course, this is based on, once again, another fact, we can say, that normally the total wants of a person are unlimited. We know that. Not possible to satisfy. But each single want is satiable. That is the assumption once again. In general, yes. Then only we apply this theory. So which is capable of being satisfied. It can be satisfied. We have to understand that it can be satisfied. Then only we are analyzing the utility, right? If there is a want which cannot be satisfied, I want to have a house in the moon, that is my want. Then there is no, I cannot use the diminishing marginal utility. By having one house in the moon, I will have some utility. By having one more house in the moon, I will have lesser utility. Third house will give me more lesser marginal utility. If I talk like this, that looks rubbish. Why? Because basically that want itself is not satisfiable. So we are not talking about them. We are talking about which type of wants. The individual wants which can be satisfied. So that is a point to be noted. When a particular want is satisfiable, what happens is, when a consumer consumes more and more of units of a commodity, the intensity of his want for the good goes on decreasing. That is the essence of this theory, though technically it is not. The essence of the theory is that. And that is fact also. Normally that can be observed. As the consumer consumes more and more units of a particular commodity, the intensity of his want for the good goes on decreasing. So when you consume the first chocolate, you will be having a lot of craving for it. Immediately if you try to consume one more chocolate, definitely the intensity with which we love that second chocolate will be lesser than the first chocolate. And later on, it keeps on decreasing also. And of course, it reaches to a point where ultimately the consumer no longer wants it. He would say, enough is enough, I don't want to have it anymore. So the point here once again is, greater the amount of good a consumer has, the less an additional unit is worth to him or her. Additional unit means marginal once again. One additional unit gives him a lesser utility, that is what is marginal utility. So the marginal utility generated by consuming more and more commodities will keep on decreasing. That's what the law says. That's what is expressed here as a separate quotation. What does it say? Read that. The additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase in the stock of a thing. Given increase in the stock of a thing means, let us say, consumption. Or having it or consuming it, both are similar in this theory. Even by having it also, he may not be same happy by having one more unit. Then he was already having some units with him. So when there is an additional unit that is coming to his stock, or when he consuming them, whatever the additional benefit that he derives from that, that will be diminishing with every increase in the stock that he already has. So already whatever number of units he had already, every addition to that stock will give him lesser additional benefit, lesser additional satisfaction, lesser additional utility. That additional utility is what we are talking. And what is that additional utility called as? That is marginal utility. That is why this theory is called as the theory of diminishing marginal utility. Okay. If it is expressed in a little different way, in a simpler manner, simply speaking, as a consumer increases the consumption of any one commodity, keeping constant the consumption of all other commodities, the marginal utility of variable commodity must eventually decline. So the commodity which is increasing the consumption of, whatever that marginal utility that commodity gives him, that will eventually decline. That's what the theory of diminishing marginal utility says. Once again it is expressed in a different way. All are same. What is it telling? It is telling that as a consumer takes more units of goods, the extra satisfaction, that extra is marginal. That extra satisfaction what he derives from an extra unit of good goes on falling. This we can say as a conclusion. In a simpler terms, what is theory of diminishing marginal utility? What is it? When a consumer takes more and more units of goods, the extra satisfaction that he derives from consuming one extra unit of good goes on falling. That's what is theory of diminishing marginal utility. Of course, what is diminishing here is marginal utility, not the total utility that has to be observed. All these things can be easily understood from this schedule. Schedule is nothing but table. Total utility, marginal utility schedule means table. Just as an example, it was taken that a chocolate bar has been consumed like this here. If somebody consumed one chocolate bar. Let us say they had a total utility of 30. Once again, what is this 30? How did we get this 30? That is difficult. That is what we are talking about. Measurement of utility. Satisfaction is something which is actually qualitative, but this theory assumes it is quantitative. So don't worry about how to quantify. That is not our scope. They will already quantify and give it to us. It is already quantified. By consuming one chocolate bar, the total utility is 30. Our job is to identify 30 as total utility. Then what was the utility generated by consuming this first unit only? 30 only, because already there was no additional consumption earlier, 0. From 0 to 1, what is the additional utility generated by the first unit consumption? 30. That's what is marginal utility, right? So we have 30 as marginal utility to start with. Let us say he has increased the consumption by one more chocolate bar. So understand once again the words carefully. Now he has consumed 2 chocolate bars, and 2 chocolate bars give him a total utility of 50. But what is the utility generated by consuming the second chocolate bar? Already by consuming one chocolate bar, he had a utility of 30. Now, by consuming one more chocolate bar, additionally, how much utility is generated? Only 20. What is this 20? 50 minus 30. So, this is what we are talking. What is marginal utility? Total utility of n, in this case 50, minus of total utility of n minus 1. That is 30. So, 50 minus 30 is 20. Like this. Further, if he increases the consumption of one more chocolate bar, total utility only increases to 15, which means the marginal, so 65 total utility, which means marginal utility is only 15. So additional utility generated by third chocolate bar consumption is only 15. That is marginal utility of consuming third chocolate bar. But what is the utility of consuming 3 chocolate bars? That is 65. That is total utility. What is the utility of consuming the third chocolate bar? That is 15. That is what is marginal utility. This differentiation has to be very much clear with these numbers. It should be now solidified, the understanding of difference between total and marginal. Like this it can go on. From 65 it moves on to 75, means the marginal utility is 10. From 75 it went to 83, means the marginal utility is 8. Then it moved on to 89, means the marginal utility is 6. Further, 93 means the marginal utility is only 4. 96 means further marginal utility is 3. 98 is the total utility when the marginal utility was only 2. From 96 to 98 only 2 units increased, and it has stopped at 98. Total utility has stopped increasing. So now what can we conclude from that? When the total utility has already reached its peak, and that peak is 98, and later on it is not going to increase further. Normally the total utility is increasing. If you observe, total utility increases. This theory is not talking about that. What decreases, what diminishes is marginal utility. So the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. If you observe that 30, 20, 15, 10, 8, 6, it is always decreasing and reach to a point of 0. And what happened at a marginal utility of 0? The total utility was at its maximum. After that, if at all he consumes 11th chocolate bar also, the total utility becomes 94, which means the marginal utility is minus 4. Instead of just having a positive marginal utility, here that becomes a negative marginal utility. Practically, you can just understand this. Maybe by that time he will vomit. So the additional chocolate he consumed is not giving him satisfaction, rather it is creating problem for him. So maybe that causes health issues to him. So maybe anything can happen to him with the consumption of that 11th chocolate bar, which gives him not a positive marginal utility, which gives him a negative marginal utility. So what can we also tell here? When there is a negative marginal utility, what happened to the total utility? Total utility has decreased, and this is the first time when the total utility has decreased. Always the total utility was increasing, if you observe. When the total utility has started declining, that means the marginal utility has turned negative. That is the conclusion we can draw from this table. Very important points these are all. This should be, we should be able to apply these points if at all such a table is given. Such a big table may not be given in the exam. At least few line items will be there, and we should understand what is the total utility representing, and marginal utility is nothing but total utility of n units minus total utility of n minus 1 units. So if the questions are asked like this, you should be able to identify the answers very clearly. If the question says, what is the total utility of consuming 6 units? The answer should be 89. What is the marginal utility of consuming 6th unit? Then the answer should be 6. What is the total utility of consuming 9 units? Answer should be 98. What is the marginal utility of consuming 9th unit? Answer should be 2. So like that, total utility is different, marginal utility is different. From this table, we should understand that in a better way, and it should be observed also in the examination questions, how to identify marginal utility and total utility. So what can we conclude from this? Various conclusions can be definitely drawn. First point, total utility rises as long as the marginal utility is positive. Yes or no? Yes. Marginal utility is always positive till the consumption reached 10th unit. So when the marginal utility is positive, total utility keeps on rising. That is first point we can write. We can understand about it. However, but at a diminishing rate. Increasing at a diminishing rate. Is total utility increasing? Yes. But is it increasing at an increasing rate? No. It is increasing at a diminishing rate. From 30 it became 50. From 50 it became only 65. From that it became 75. So if it was increasing at an increasing rate, then the situation would be different. It is not increasing at an increasing rate. It is increasing but at a diminishing rate or a decreasing rate or a smaller rate of increase. It is showing. Increase it is showing, but at a lesser rate of increase it is showing. So why is it showing lesser rate of increase? Naturally, because the marginal utility is declining, marginal utility is diminishing. Because of that, total utility rises as long as the marginal utility is positive, but at a diminishing rate. That is the first point. Second point, marginal utility diminishes throughout. That is very much visible. Always it keeps on declining only. Third point, when the marginal utility is 0, then what about total utility? Total utility is maximum, and that can be called as a saturation point. So when a customer reaches the saturation point, when the marginal utility is 0, that is the third point. Fourth point, when the marginal utility is negative, only in one case it was negative. When the consumption of 11th unit happened, marginal utility became negative. But what can we observe there? When that turned negative, the total utility started diminishing. From 98 to 94 it became. So marginal utility negative means total utility started diminishing. It is diminishing at that time. When the marginal utility is negative. Also, marginal utility is nothing but the rate of change of total utility or the slope of total utility. This is also to be remembered. Each of them can be a question, like normally pick the correct answers, incorrect answers out of the 4, like that. Any of these statements can be given. So you should be able to identify whether that statement is a correct statement or wrong. How will you know that? If you know the actual characteristics of this table and this theory of diminishing marginal utility. So what are the characteristics we are talking about? 1. Total utility rises as long as the marginal utility is positive, but of course at a diminishing rate. Marginal utility keeps on diminishing only always. When the marginal utility is 0, total utility is at its maximum. That is called a saturation point. When the marginal utility is negative, the total utility must be diminishing. And what is marginal utility basically? That is the rate of change of total utility, or that can be called as slope of total utility. Once again, we are not going to calculate the slopes or anything like that. We are not going to use geometry here. Mathematical applications are to be as limited as possible in economics. Simple calculations, if at all we do, is plus, minus, multiplication, division. That's all, nothing more than that. So slope and all, we are not going to use that, but we should know that. For a bit, we should know that. What is marginal utility? It is the slope of the total utility. So that is fifth point. Sixth point, marginal utility can be positive also, zero also, negative also. Very clear. It was positive all this time, then it became zero, then it became negative also. So is it possible for marginal utility to be positive? Yes. Zero? Yes. Can it be negative? Yes also. That is what the theory of diminishing marginal utility tells us. And this can be expressed as a graph also in this figure number 11. You can just quickly go through that. What is there on the x-axis? Quantity of consumption. In this particular case, chocolate bars. What is on y-axis? That is the index of utility. Index of utility. Of course, it can be replaced with the price if you think that price itself is the utility. But let us not get into that now. Let us consider whatever it is utility on y-axis. So y-axis is utility, x-axis is quantity. So what is happening as the x-axis increases? As the quantity of chocolate bars is increasing, as the consumption of chocolate bars is increasing, what is happening to the utility? That is marginal utility particularly, that is decreasing. The total utility is increasing, but marginal utility is decreasing. That is why the marginal utility curve is sloping downward. So naturally the relationship here is also inverse relationship. As the quantity of consumption of chocolate bars increases, the marginal utility decreases. Till when it has decreased? Till point 10, it has decreased. At a point 10, what happened? At a quantity of 10, what happened? Then the marginal utility has become 0. That is why it has touched the x-axis already. So it has crossed the x-axis, means it is 0. Utility is 0. Which utility here? Marginal utility is 0. Later on, the same marginal utility has turned negative when 11 units are consumed, or 11th unit is consumed, you can say. When the 11th unit is consumed, the marginal utility turned negative. So the total utility started declining and marginal utility became negative at that point when 11th chocolate bar is consumed. Up to 9th, the marginal utility was declining, but total utility was increasing. From 9th to 10th, marginal utility has declined, but total utility did not change. Marginal utility is there, 0 from 9th to 10th. So what happened? The total utility did not change. But by consuming one more unit, that is 11th unit, the total utility has declined from 98 to 94. That means that has resulted in a negative marginal utility of -4. All of them are just depicted in this graph. So what does the slope or the angle of this diminishing marginal utility curve telling us? It is telling us the quantity of consumption of any commodity and the marginal utility generated by that commodity are inversely proportional. As the quantity increases, the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. And we cannot go reverse here. That is not possible. So don't worry about what happens in reverse way. First he consumes 11th one, then he comes 10th one, then he comes 9th. Not possible. No? So don't worry about that. So only one way it is there. In inverse relationship means as the quantity consumed increases, the marginal utility generated by each additional consumption of commodity keeps on decreasing. That's what is depicted even in this graph. That's what we can call as the diminishing marginal utility curve. And then generally this applies to almost all commodities, but of course not necessarily to all. Sometimes there may be few exceptions like money, hobbies, etc. Maybe the additional thing that you collected may not give you a lesser satisfaction than the previous one. So exceptions will always be there. Then we don't need to debate on whether it is possible to have a diminishing marginal utility on money or not. That becomes a philosophical issue. But as far as this theory is concerned, it assumes that money has a constant marginal utility. That we should know. Though it could be quite possible to have a constant marginal utility. Definitely it does not have diminishing marginal utility like other commodities, that is for sure. So that is why we can say this particular marginal utility concept may not be applied for every commodities. There might be few exceptions, but let us not focus on exceptions. Let us focus on the main theory. Generally, for many commodities, the theory of diminishing marginal utility applies, and that helps, of course, also for us to understand how a consumer reaches the equilibrium in case of a particular commodity, how it happens. That is explained by the theory of diminishing marginal utility. So we know all these things. What is this theory telling us? The marginal utility curve is downward sloping. And when it is downward sloping, the consumer will go on buying a good till the marginal utility of the good becomes equal to market price. So as we discussed earlier, when a consumer will buy a commodity, naturally when he gets a utility from the commodity equivalent to its price at least, if at all, the utility generated is more than price, then we can say that is consumer surplus. We'll come to that later. But in general, when a consumer is ready to pay a market price, why is he ready to pay the market price? Simple logic. Because he knows that the marginal utility, whatever it is, generated by the commodity is equal to the market price. That is when the consumer is said to be in the equilibrium. This is the important aspect we need to understand in this theory. And when the marginal utility of the goods is equal to price, then only his satisfaction will be maximum. So what happens if the price is more than marginal utility? He may not buy it at all. Even if he buys also, he will not be satisfied with that purchase. But what if marginal utility is less than price? If marginal utility is more than price, then it is good, consumer surplus. Price is less. If price is more and utility is less, or marginal utility is less, then the consumer may not be willing to buy that product at all. So when he will be in equilibrium, he will not be hating that product also. He will not be avoiding to buy that product also. When he will buy, generally, when he will be in the equilibrium, where his satisfaction will be maximum. That's what we can call it as when a consumer reaches equilibrium. So when the satisfaction will be maximum, simple. This is the theory you have to remember. The theory is when the marginal utility of the commodity is equal to its price. That is when the consumer is going to reach his own equilibrium according to this theory. Okay. For this to understand, we need to know what is marginal utility. That's what we did. For this to be understood, we need to know the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. That we did. But if we practically think, is there anybody, a fool, who is going to consume 11 chocolate bars at a time? No, definitely not. So that is not the point here. We are talking about a theory, experiment. If a consumer keeps on increasing the consumption of certain commodities, then the marginal utility generated by consuming one more unit will be always decreasing. And a consumer will be in equilibrium when the marginal utility, whatever that may be, is equivalent to its price. Then only he derives the maximum satisfaction. That's what happens. Now let us test one more scenario here. Let us say what happens when there is a change in the price of the good. Change can happen in two ways. Either there can be an increase in price or there can be a decrease in price. Both are possible. Let us say price of the good has fallen. First case, only two possibilities. Price has changed means either it has increased or decreased. First case, let us take price of the good has fallen. So when the price of the good has fallen, what the consumer will do? Because the utility that is generating from that commodity is high, but price now is low. Earlier both were equal. Earlier marginal utility and price were equal. Now because the price has reduced, but the marginal utility of the commodity is now becoming more than price, the consumer will tend to consume more of the commodity so that he can restore the equality between marginal utility and price. Simply speaking, When the price of the goods fall, the consumer will consume more of that commodity. Is it not law of demand? That is what is law of demand. And that's what is backed up by the theory of diminishing marginal utility, as we discussed earlier also. The theory of diminishing marginal utility and the law of demand go hand in hand. Both are separate theories, but they are very closely related with each other. So because the consumer is rational, because the consumer always gets a lesser satisfaction by consuming additional unit, because of that, normally a consumer will consume only when the marginal utility is equal to price. However, if a situation of price is reduced has happened, then the consumer will increase his consumption of that commodity. That's what happens. Why is that? Because ultimately he wants to maintain the equality between the marginal utility and the money that he spends. That's what is going to happen. When he consumes the more of the commodity, marginal utility will further reduce. Then it will become equivalent to price. Like this, he will continue to consume more till the marginal utility becomes equal to new lower price. Once again, is he going to really do? Is there any mad person who is ready to prove all this? No. It is a tendency. It is a possibility of a theory that if at all the disturbance of equilibrium happened, how the consumers might behave. What is equilibrium? When marginal utility is equal to price. When it is disturbed, in this particular case, price has fallen. When price has fallen, marginal utility has become more, price has become less. But consumer always wants these two to be equal. Because price has already fallen, he has to reduce the marginal utility now. How can he do that? By consuming more, he can reduce. When you keep on consuming more commodities, the marginal utility automatically reduces. Then he will keep on consuming the commodity more and more till the marginal utility becomes once again equal to new lower price. Once again, he reaches to equilibrium. Of course, if you take an individual consumer, this may not happen actually. But if a market as a whole, if you observe, the tendency will be similar. We cannot prove it with point to point, but tendency definitely yes. And that's what the law of demand also proves. When the price of the goods falls, then automatically the consumption of that commodity or the demand for that commodity or quantity demanded of that commodity will keep on increasing. Why is it happening? Because of the theory of diminishing marginal utility. That's it. Now let us take other case. What if the price of the goods has increased? Then price increased means the marginal utility of that commodity is less now than the price. So naturally he will do the opposite. What he will do? He will buy less. Once again, so as to equate the marginal utility to the higher price. So simply speaking, why the downward sloping demand curve is there? Because demand curve, what we had downward sloping, is directly derived from the marginal utility curve, and if you observe, that is also downward sloping. So the demand curve and marginal utility curve are having same shape because they are depicting the same phenomena. The phenomena is simple. When the price is reduced, consumption or demand will be more. When the price is more, the consumption will be less. Why that happens? Because of theory of diminishing marginal utility. And the consumer equilibrium happens only when marginal utility of a particular commodity is equivalent to its price. That's what is, we can say, the theory of diminishing marginal utility. Now let us take it to a little bit further. How can a consumer equilibrium will be there when a consumer is having more than one good? Only one commodity we observed, only chocolate bar, this example was taken. But chocolate bar and something else also consumed, then how this will look like? Again, we don't have to enter into any situations here unnecessarily. We just need to know the theory and the concept that is talking about. So when a consumer is having, let us say, two commodities at the same time, if at all, that is, if at all, then the consumer equilibrium will be arrived at what? It will be when the marginal utility of each good is proportional to its price. Then only consumer will be in equilibrium. So this is the important sentence. The marginal utility of each commodity, whatever the commodities that consumer consumes, the marginal utility of each commodity should be proportional to its price. According to its price only, the marginal utility should be there. For example, if it is expressed mathematically, MUX divided by PX. MUX means the marginal utility of commodity X divided by price of commodity X should be equal to MUY divided by PY. Marginal utility of commodity Y divided by PY. If not, what happens? He will shift his consumption from X to Y or Y to X. He will be in equilibrium only when this theory is satisfied or this phenomena is satisfied. This can be called as the law of equimarginal utility. When this will be applied? Not every time. Not every time. When the consumption is about more than one good. Normally for one good, this theory is enough. That is the theory of diminishing marginal utility, and consumer's equilibrium happens when the price of the commodity is equal to marginal utility. We know that. But what if the consumer is having more than one commodity? Then we can apply the theory of equimarginal utility, which is nothing but MUX divided by PX will be equal to MUY divided by PY. That is a place, that is a time when the consumer will be in equilibrium. And if you do the cross multiplication, this can be expressed in a different way also. MUX divided by MUY should be equal to PX divided by PY. That is when the consumer is said to be in the equilibrium. That is a point to be noted. If we are talking about two commodities, X and Y. Sir, can we take 3 commodities also? We can take 45 commodities also. Always it is the same. MUX divided by PX should be equal to MUY divided by PY should be equal to MUZ divided by PZ. Like that, any number of commodities, if that is happening, then only the consumer is said to be at the equilibrium. Are we going to test that? Not possible. But we can just apply that if at all the numbers are given. If at all a problem says that a consumer is at equilibrium and he gives marginal utility of X and price of X and marginal utility of Y he gives, he will ask us to find out price of Y. You have to substitute in the formula and get price of Y. That's all. That is the maximum thing that we are going to use this for. But the name of this theory you have to remember, that is called the law of equimarginal utility. Equi because the relative marginal utility of each commodity is equal. Relative means what? Compared with what? Compared with its price. So the marginal utility of each commodity proportional to its price should be equal when we compare more than one commodity. That is called the law of equimarginal utility, we can call it. Right? That is the basic understanding of the theory of diminishing marginal utility. Of course, there are many limitations of this law. We don't need to be really spending too much time on this. Some of them we can just understand. First of all, the law assumes homogeneous units. That itself could be practically not possible. So this law works only when the units are homogeneous. When you said chocolate bar, it should be the same type of chocolate bar. Then only this theory works. So first chocolate bar is a 100 grams one, second chocolate bar is 20 grams, third chocolate bar is 10 grams. No, this theory does not work. So basically the units should be homogeneous. Homogeneous means same quantity they should be, and they should be identical in all respects. That's what we call homogeneous is. And also not only that, the habit, taste, temperament and income of the consumer should remain unchanged. All other factors should be constant. Assumption, it should happen like that. If it happens, then only the theory is proven like that. So what if it doesn't happen? Doesn't happen? If it doesn't happen, then this theory also cannot work in the same way. But the tendency can be definitely looked at. All that once again I'm telling is, we should not take these theories in the sense what they are telling exactly will happen in the world. It is impossible. Just they tell with certain assumptions. One of the assumptions is this: homogeneous units are consumed. And standard units of comparison, once again same. Quantity wise also it is same. Unit should be homogeneous and the quantity also should be same. In the first case, I have homogeneous units. We can say first unit is chocolate, second unit is water, glass of water. Again, third is chocolate, fourth is glass of water. No, not like that. Then this theory will not work. All should be same chocolate only. That too of same quantity only. Then only this will work. So that is a point here. And the standard unit should be there. For example, just once again, just as an example it is given. A thirsty man is given water by successive spoons. So first spoon, second spoon. Definitely there is no diminishing marginal utility going to be. At least a glass of water you can understand. Spoon, like this small quantities I will try, but I will disprove this theory. Yes, we can do that. But that doesn't have any impact on the theory. The theory stays good there only. Just point to notice, the units of consumption should be of some standard, not very small units. That is also a point to be noted. And a very ridiculous assumption actually is that the consumption is happening continuously. Continuous consumption is happening. Means one after the other. No sane person will do that, we know. But the theory assumes that the consumption is continuous. No time gap or no time interval between the consumption. If there is time gap, then the diminishing marginal utility will not happen. Daily one chocolate bar somebody can eat, still happily can have the same marginal utility derived from each additional unit of consumption if that is consumed each day, daily once. No, not like that. Same time, one after the other that is consumed, then only this theory is applicable. Then naturally question comes, who will consume like that? We know nobody consumes like that. But if continuous consumption happens, then the marginal utility is going to be diminishing, is what the theory says. So as per this theory, there should not be any time interval between the consumption of one unit and another unit. That is another assumption only. We know that it is ridiculous assumption, just we should know that, nothing more than. Next, another assumption or another problem we can say, limitation we can say of this law is that this law fails in the case of prestigious goods. Like for example, gold, money or diamonds, etc. Utility may not decrease. You have one diamond, let us say you got some utility. Somehow you got another diamond. Your utility will not reduce. It may still increase, or maybe it will remain constant. Whatever may happen. So it may not diminish. So the point is, with the greater quantity may increase the utility rather than diminishing it. That is possible, particularly for prestigious goods, we can call them, or Veblen goods we can call them, conspicuous commodities we can call them. For them, this law may not apply. Of course, this law should not be applicable to money at all. Money is altogether a different discussion. We have to understand that. Because this law assumes that the marginal utility of money is constant. So that has to be always kept in mind. It cannot be disturbed. So marginal utility of money is always constant. It cannot diminish. So this law does not apply to money at all. This law does not apply to gold, diamonds, etc. also, because there may not be any diminishing utility. Rather, there may be an increasing utility also, quite possible. Like that in some hobbies or bad habits also, like alcohol, cigarettes, etc. There also the law may not apply. So the law is not universal. It is not going to be applicable for every commodity. Not possible, not required also. That is the limitation of the law. And one more point is that the law assumes that the goods are independent, because this case of related goods is ignored by the law. This utility curve completely ignores that there are substitutes or complementaries. They are not at all considered in this theory. So utility obtained from tea may be seriously affected if sugar is not available, but this law ignores that. That is an example just to understand. So tea is there, 1 cup of tea, second cup of tea, like that this law will tell us. But without sugar, what is tea probably may not be having the same type of theory applicable, because this law ignores that. The point is that. Same way, the utility of a bottled soft drink might be affected by the availability of fresh juice. You may not get the same utility from the soft drink if the availability is there of fresh juice. If it is not there, then the utility from soft drink, what people can expect, might be more. So basically the point is, no goods are independent. There might be some relation with some other goods which this law ignores. That is a limitation. How to build that into this law? If at all we do that, that is what we get PhD for. If we can change the law of diminishing marginal utility by introducing the substitutes and complementaries also to this, definitely that is worth a PhD degree. Somebody definitely would have already done that. So that is beyond our scope. Once again, we just need to understand what are the limitations of the law. Very clear limitation. This law ignores the related goods, which is not correct, because in reality there are related goods. That's it. And of course, I'm summarizing all of them. Basically, this law is based on unrealistic assumptions. The basic assumption itself is gone. What is that? The measurability of utility itself is a myth. Really, it is not possible. Practically, it is very difficult to quantify the satisfaction. But this law assumes that utility is measurable. That is why we call this a cardinal theory. And that cardinal approach of this theory of diminishing marginal utility itself is its limitation. And same way, the constancy of the marginal utility of money. This law assumes that the constancy of marginal utility of money. So that is also probably not practically possible. There may be different situations where the marginal utility of money may not be constant, may not be diminishing, may be increasing also, we don't know. So that is a assumption, unrealistic little bit, but that's what the the theory takes about. And it talks about continuous consumption, which is also unrealistic. Consumer rationality is one of the most unrealistic assumptions, because consumers in general cannot be called as rational. Most of the cases the consumers are bakra, that we already discussed. So they have all the ability to judge and evaluate a particular product or service, and they know how much utility that they can derive from a product or service, and they can match it with the price exactly, then they will buy. All this is just practically impossible. Most of the consumers at some point or other, say some person may be fantastic in buying books, he may understand the evaluation of the books. Some person may be fantastic in evaluating paintings, but a normal person may not be able to understand what is the value of a painting. So the utility, measurability of that utility comes later. First of all, the consumer's ability itself to judge the value of a product, to judge the utility that might be generated from the product, and matching it with the price of the product, and then taking a decision. All this is not possible for all the consumers about all products. That is why the rationality of consumers is always an unrealistic assumption. Many unrealistic and many irrational things the consumers keep on doing, but there is no logic for them. There will be always such people. We cannot blame them or we cannot hate them. That is the reality. We just have to accept that. So rationality of consumers is a myth. But this theory assumes that, every theory assumes that. End of the day, if you really come to a point where, let us say, the rationality of consumers is not there, all consumers are stupid people, if let us say we start with that assumption, there is no point of discussing economics, no? Because you can make a theory, you can understand a pattern, you can imagine something, you can project something, forecast something. When you understand how a person or how a group of persons behave, if you think that they don't know, you can never understand how they behave. The basic assumption itself is, if at all, people are all irrational, people are all idiots, then there is no need of this subject. So that is why, whether we like it or not, whether it is really possible or not, irrespective of that, consumers have to be assumed to be rational always. For all theoretical purposes, yes, they are rational. But on the other side, in our brains, when we think about that, we should also know there is a little bit of exaggeration in that. Consumers are practically not so rational. Both things we should have in mind. What should dominate is the important aspect. We should not struggle there. What should dominate always is theory, because that is our purpose here. But what will also be there in the back of the mind is, maybe this theory is not going to work. That's all. Only back of the mind, somewhere it can be there. That cannot come out and dominate the theory itself. That is the point to be noted. And any theory works like this with a lot of assumptions. Some of them are unrealistic. Some of them may be good. Some of them may be realistic. So irrespective of all that, definitely the theory of diminishing marginal utility is a very important theory. And this is the theory which is linked to the theory of demand also. So these two are very much linked with each other. And as the theory of diminishing marginal utility works, because of that only the theory of demand also works. With that, we can conclude this diminishing marginal utility theory. Maybe we can call that DMU theory. So that is one part of the marginal utility analysis. Another part of the marginal utility analysis is about consumer surplus. We'll discuss about that in the next class. Until that time, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.